Quite often, legends cluster about and along the seacoast, but now and then one of them is found in the interior. One corner of the town of Chester, New Hampshire, lifts into the view an eminence known as Rattlesnake Hill, one rocky side of which is pierced entirely through, thus forming a cavern of great notoriety. In all the country around, this cavern is known as the Devil's Den, and many were the frightful stories told around winter firesides of the demons who haunted it, and who all unseen of mortal eyes there held their midnight orgies within the gloomy recesses of this mountain. There were two entrances to this cavern, both leading to an interior subterranean chamber whose vaulted roof is thickly studded with large round stalactites that are said to shine and sparkle when the flame of a torch sheds a glow. According to a popular tradition, the path leading to the cavern was also kept open summer and winter. Many years ago, the poet Whittier put the cavern into verse. It is said that this cave is an evil place, the chosen haunt of a fallen race. That midnight traveler often has seen a red flame tremble in jaws between. Lighten and quiver the bows among, like fire plays in the serpent's tongue. Sounds of fear in the chamber swell, a ghostly fiend yell. Bodiless hands at the entrance wave, and hence they have named it the Demon's Cave. Illustrious. I think it's Wednesday. My days are getting all aloof. I sometimes don't even know what day it is, but I think it's Wednesday, the day before Indian Genocide Day. I think that's right. It's Indian Genocide Day. If you have ever traveled through what are they called, reservations, you can see the living ghetto of the poor Indians, or poor whatever, just a race that has been subjugated by a higher race with stronger, bigger weapons. And I went through several reservations on my travels, probably down throughout the country, and that's a good nail hitter right on the head, that they are ghettos. A population that lives amongst us in America that has been left on its own to just die off. And I think that a lot of people in the United States do not remember or realize or care that this race that is living amongst us is dying off in this living ghetto. And it's just an odd juxtaposition of the land of the free, or the land of the sheeple, consumer slave, which is the current state of America. And I love America. I love America. However, I am more free when I am in Denmark or Holland than I am in America, because it seems that we are becoming so over-legislated, so law enforced, that we can't even walk down the sidewalk without violating some obscure law. But pretty soon we will be walking down the sidewalk and not being able to step over anyone, considering that we might reach 11 billion people on this planet in short order. And that will definitely mean extinction for probably a great number of animals on our planet. There's been a lot going on, a lot of dream interpretation, a lot of discussion of this Illuminati, and of course black magic and witchcraft has been our discussion throughout our Pentacle-Hours broadcasts. And I have not really touched on a lot more, or not enough maybe, on black magic and how it works. And in some formality I can look at some of this information. If moral evil be consistent with the government of the deity, why may not physical evil be consistent with it? The solemn declaration that the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children unto the third and the fourth generations sometimes recurs to us with startling force, more especially when the awful anathema is brought so near home to us as it is by the following voracious curses. And how does a curse work? Or why would one want to put a curse on anyone? Curses are very powerful, and they are mechanisms for leveling the playing field. They were projections, psychic, invented by the powerless to be empowered. And in a lot of ways, it could also be from the powered upon the powerless. And if you are a black magic practitioner, you are definitely at an advantage over anyone who does not. And that is my own personal opinion and from experience. Other types of ideologies are not as honed in on an eye for an eye philosophy as Old Testament. I have said this before, that the Bible is one of the most bloodthirsty doctrines I've ever read, and it shows and reveals mankind's inhumanity to man. If you actually read it, you can see the eye for an eye, and that is what a curse is. So let's hypothetically say that someone has screwed someone over and they cannot have any recourse whatsoever. Law doesn't do it. You can't really put your hands on them because it'll be some kind of issue. But you've been slighted in a very real way. Typically, probably the almighty God dollar. So someone has taken your almighty God dollar away. What you could do is get an image of that individual, and through the use of certain Latin and black magic terms, Enochian and several others, you could imbue a curse upon that person through the focus of looking at the image, burning the image in a candle, carrying out some incantation, and hoping for the best, meaning the destruction of your enemy. It sounds very simple, but it's actually much more complicated than that. And the key to black magic is to have the intention behind the action, so it's a combination of forces. And these things are done to even rot, as I had read earlier, over generations and stream through time, so that the curse is visited upon the sons of the fathers who committed the crime, so it's never forgotten. And there are people that have fallen under curses all the time, and it ruins their luck. That's the first thing to go. If something never goes right for you, and you always seem to get the short end of the stick, and you're always the one in the accident, and you're always the one that's having the breakup issues or relationships that are not, solid, or just a series of other things, these are definite signs that a curse could be afoot. Now, indeed, through social cues, we all could make mistakes. We should turn right instead of left, and if we treated this person this certain way, these certain things would not have happened, and so on and so on. Those things happen all the time. That is just society. That is just general civilization, man's acuity to work together and man to work against each other. However, when you know there is black magic intention, is when you can just never get out of it. It just seems to go on and on and on. And you are just carrying this weight, and you just feel like you're 1,000 pounds, and you're being weighted down. That is a very much a cue that something is off. That is when you may, through certain accoutrements of tarot or divination, runes, whatever you want to utilize, could get to the bottom of whether you have a curse on you or not. Your intuition is going off, and you would know then. So to explore, through tarot, the art of informing oneself that they have a shade curse or some kind of curse upon them is a very clear, good, insightful way to discover the truth. Certain cards in the tarot deck, for example, could reveal that one has a curse on them if the direct question is posed. If you were to say, do I have a curse on me? Give me an answer. That's pretty blatant and direct. If you really project and mean it, then you can look at it. If you're getting towers reversed, crossed by knights of swords, that is a truth. There is a curse. And it's bringing the intention of destruction and war. War into your life to bring the end of you. Now, if you're getting the Nine of Cups intermixed, possibly inverted, that would say it's going to be a while. It's going to be some time. That this is going to be a slow bleed, that they is going to take you for a ride before the deed is finally done. And it does and will succeed in your destruction, as I am a believer in curses. And it will be slow. It could take up to 9 months or 9 years, but your life will be miserable. So you could go along the tracks and for years not know that you're under the curse, but you're having a problem with jobs and always antagonisms and can't get along with anybody and nothing's going right for you and you're just stuck and you're at a dead end and, you're dating losers, whatever it is. So, those are just common indications, and then obviously some more extreme issues. Car issues, always in wrecks, you're getting maimed, you're being injured, and slowly it progresses. So as you slowly progress into your curse and its manifestation, you're injured, your arm is broken, then you're maimed, and then you fall into deep depressions you can't get out of that could linger for 6 months. This is serious time. That's when you just all of a sudden want to take your own life. And that is exactly the curse's intention. The curse intends to bring the destruction of you once it is placed. Now, banishment, however, is a whole nother reality, and there is some success with banishing a curse, but not much. 90% of this trade that I'm in, or whoever is in, if they're calling themselves a witchcraft person, or a seer, or a guru, or I'm a Buddhist enlightened person, or I'm walking the path of Dharma, and all these kind of things, they all want to be light bringers, or some kind of, aspect that they can lift your curse. And this is also predominant in New Orleans, where the scam artists really centralized. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and I've spent loads of time in New Orleans. I had a friend that owned a mansion down there. We spent a lot of time down there. I still spend time down there, and he still owns some mansions, so there you go. But that's where I run into a lot of it. You feel depressed, you're cursed, but these guys, this is how they work. So let's say you go into the guru and you have a curse on you, or you think you do, and you may not. You may just need to tweak your own social reality. You may need to turn left instead of right. You may need to improve this and that. You may need to throw out the wardrobe. You may need to up the bar, or and so on and so on. So you go into one of these guys, fraudsters, charlatans, whatever you want to call them, and then they give you a reading or throw your runes or make you draw sticks or some kind of I Ching, or there's a sudden revelation. Oh my goodness, I'm cursed. So this man or whoever, woman, whatever, they tell you you're cursed, and you may not be. Right away, there's a dollar sign behind that God money. So they get out that God money. It could be $1,000, it could be $5,000. You're over a barrel, you don't have $5,000, you work some deal, it's just crazy. Say you turn them down. So you turn them down, obviously who wouldn't? The first over the barrel thing is, I'm going to think about it. So you leave. Well, guess what? This is the game. They got your number, baby. And if you didn't have a curse before, you're going to have one now, because they're going to put one on you. And when they put one on you, it's going to be a realization, as your luck changes even more, that I'm Winter Lake, winterlake.com, streaming QUE4.org on this illustrious Wotan's Day, or Wednesday, or Odin's Day. All the names of the week, Monday through Sunday, have pagan significance. They have Nordic significance. They are named after the old Nordic gods that ruled in the lands of our earth, in our world, that are long forgotten. But each day of the week they're not. Because today is Odin's Day. And Thursday is Thor's Day. So you would say Thor. Thor is Nordic god, thunder, lightning, the films, the Hollywood, the stories, the comic books, and also the Nordic god of lightning. So today is Odin's Day, and we have reached the Odin hour of Pentacle-Hours. But I thought I would share that with you because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people, they go about every day like it's meaningless, or they're put down a day and they have no idea the real power of each day. And timing is everything. Monday, I like the name, although we dread the time. Monday is Moon Day. It's a day of new evolution and new force. And Friday is one of my favorite days. It's Freya's Day. Freya being the huntress of the woods, and Saturn, I think I have said this before, is Saturday. But no one knows that. I will seal you in a veil of snares, my wantonest daughters. I am a lech of horrors entangled. One astral shade which, woven in two and separated by astral death, craves succubusal. I wrote that a few hours ago. I write poetry all the time. Thought I would share some of that on this episode of Pentacle-Hours. I've written about 4 or 5 books on poetry. I won a Smithsonian Award. I won some Poetry Award, Global something, years ago in the 90s. But I think poetry is shelved. I don't, obviously no one's really reading anything anymore, but especially not poetry. And there's never money in poetry. And I meet poets all the time. And not just that I like girls, I do like girls, but I meet a lot of poetesses. And they have this romantic aspect of it that they think that their chapbook or something is going to be amazing and they're going to sell 5,000 copies and become famous and so on and so on. This kind of thing generally doesn't happen. You'd have to be a poet, and probably by the time you're about 60, you may get recognition for that, and for me, that time frame is not workable. I mean, it's just not. When you're an old crone or dead and tired, it's pretty pointless to gain fame at that point. But I do love poetry, and I write extensively of poems and songs and screenplays and whatever else I want, and poetry is close to my heart, but I'm not having some veneer about it. I don't really care if I am famous or famous from my poetry, but I do it for this reason. I do it for my own posterity. And it's important that if you are a poet, that you go about it with that view if you are in it for the long haul. If it is just some passing phase, just like being a practitioner of witchcraft and magic, it could just be a phase. One year I'm into dragons or something, and the next year I'm going to be a Buddhist. I mean, that's just how America is. I mean, and people are so whimsical. They have no religious real findings anymore, especially as Christianity dies, the relic of old religion. It's just becoming a shell. A lot of churches are sitting empty. No one's attending anymore. No one's giving their money, except usually when there's a tragedy. If there's a tragedy, there is the knee-jerk conditioning tool that, oh my goodness, I need to give $10,000 to the church. Or grandma's on her deathbed, I'm giving it all to the church or some organization.
I don't really know if that's good or bad. I don't really care either way. People can do what they want to do, and that's so important. And I think that if someone chooses to silence someone's speech or take away someone's personage or life or something, that is where the line is crossed. I can speak my opinion about certain things, and I guess this is monkey see, monkey do, as we do live in America, but I think it's forgotten all too much. Because it's got to be important that we can believe what we want, say what we want, within range, without trying to hurt or destroy someone. But that's Alacritus, that's a witchcraft concept, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. And again, looking at the other side of it, being the ever contrarian that I am, how is it possible to do everything you want and not hurt anybody? It's pretty impossible. You're going to step on somebody, you're going to injure somebody if you're doing whatever you want. If it's the whole of the entirety of the totality. So looking at it from both ends of the spectrum, there is no middle ground. But I think there is a middle ground with Satanism. Satanism is an aspect of self-indulgence and living life to the fullest and living every day like it's your last. I think Satanism attempts to incorporate all knowledge and overtake the arrogance of polemic assumptions. Satanism undertakes the task of erecting itself upon the ruins of previous failed systems with supernatural subtlety and a dark artifice in order to displace the conditions of heresy and stunted religions. I do not think or believe that it is a new prop or a dying philosophy of faith, but a steadfast reality of real power. Satanism seeks to overcome life's limitations and usurp a corporeal world. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. And I do think Islam is a pestilence of the world as well, but I say that all the time. And, and I'd love to debate an Islamist, but I think he'd just probably want to cut my head off or something. Like they do to these poor women in Afghanistan, or pouring acid on someone when they're tired of them, or accusing a child of witchcraft, planting something in their book bag, and then dragging them in front of the village. All that much in days. I've been working around the clock, filming a show, Star-Crossed Vampires, which is really funny, and full-fledged force with that. Plus writing another book, which I don't know why I do this every year. I say I don't want to write another book, but it's been pretty consistent that every year I write a book, no matter what, come hell or high water. So I'll sit and write a book, and I'm writing another one and referencing more of the occult all the time. Getting a lot of emails and feedback about the Pentacle-Hours show. A lot of people like it, some people don't. Some people have said that the sound quality is not so good, or, series of other things. But we are going to work on everything once I banish all the ghosts out of the system and the studio, and the witch casting that, in my opinion, has been going on since I stepped into the door, then things will be set to rights. But I don't know. We shall see. I mean, things are very relative in our life. But I thought I would read something of news. But, is it relevant to us? Probably. It's a weekly journal from New England from December 1st, 1729. So this is relevant news to us, isn't it? I mean, I came across this. Was a printed ghost story verbatim in this journal. I mean, we don't really talk about the crashing of the cars or the ghettos. Sometimes I do. I mean, as I said about the Indians earlier, sometimes I do. I will, but I'm not really talking about snowing in 4 different areas of the city. Yes, it's snowing here, Billy. Yes, it's snowing here, Becky. No, this is just news that relates to the occult. The Weekly Journal, December 1st, 1729. Last week,
One belonging to Ipswich came to Boston and related that sometime since he was at Cosno in Nova Scotia, and that on a certain day there appeared to him an apparition in blood and wounds. Told him that at such a time and place, mentioning both, he was barbarously murdered by one who was at Rhode Island, and desired him to go to said person and charge him with said murder, and prosecute him therefore thereof, naming several circumstances relating to the murder that only he would know, and that since his arrival for Cosno to Ipswich, the said apparition had appeared to him again, and urged him immediately to prosecute said affair. The above said person, having related the matter, was advised and encouraged to go to Rhode Island, engage therein, and accordingly set out for the place on Thursday last. And I hope that that person did that. But as it goes on, it's odd. The apparition keeps appearing to him. Dr. Timothy Dwight, in his travels, records and with approval the following of that indeed a prosecution was brought forward in New England, and it was generally believed that this person had information that no other person could possibly have in regards to the murder, which actually led to a murder weapon. And this is interesting because, as I am a psychic and I have worked in law enforcement, I don't do this anymore because they automatically think you're a suspect if you find the body buried underneath the patio. Anyway, I've worked in this. So in this field of this old news clipping from 1729 showing that a murderer was outed by the very weapon that a man had an apparition appear to him, which led him through a series of events to find and discover further information that only the murderer would know, which pointed a finger at said person. This kind of event is psychic, and it happens. It's unexplained, but I'm sure as we move forward in our history or future, or both simultaneously at once in both directions with string realities, we will be able to discover what the secrecy is or how the mind is able to find out through psychic triggers, psychic events that no one could possibly know. That you do find the body that is buried underneath the patio. I mean, even like with this recent murder, well, not recent, it's been years, but people were coaxing me to get involved in it. It involved Laake Peterson and her disappearance, and there was some nonsense with some criminal cop or something, and a couple friends were like, I think, Winter Lake could solve the crime. Well, I actually did some remote viewing on it. And I think there is something to be said. That I think I do see a body buried underneath the patio. I think that Laake Peterson is probably buried under some concrete somewhere. I have no idea where. So maybe if some cop is still interested in some cold case, although I do think they have the right murderer, he's well away in prison, they might be able to discover that poor woman's body. But I do think she is dead. She has not run off. I've remote viewed it, looked at it psychically, did a couple little things on it. I don't like to waste my time. My time is very precious. But I did actually look into this murder, and I do think that this poor woman is long gone, banished from the earth. But her body is under some kind of concrete somewhere, maybe in the back patio of that guy's house. I have no idea. And other times, odd events of synchronicity when coming to finding information that only the murderer would know, I've stumbled into as well. I was at an Irish bar recently, and I was sitting and eating and talking, whatever, and I had my tarot cards out and was reading for some people. And initially I met this guy who I didn't like. I didn't like him at all. He rubbed me the wrong way. He was drunk. It was 12 o'clock, Irish drinking binge, something, like seaman in from the port or something. I mean, but it was ridiculous. He lives on land, he's acting that weird or rude or whatever.
but he's got that whole like thing. And he's kind of demanding a tarot reading. And I'm like, well, okay, put down some money, I'll give you a reading. And, I'm just straightforward. Sure enough, he did. And ironically, I outed that his sister was murdered. Did not want to say that initially, but I just all of a sudden came out and said it. I said, I think that you've had murder in your family. And he fell off his stool. And he was shocked to this revelation that this psychic, me, Winter Lake, had known this knowledge that really he doesn't speak about. He said, but yes, he had a sister sometime in the 90s, was murdered some brutal way, a horrid incident, picked up or maybe in a car going somewhere, nobody really knows, pre-cell phone reality, GPS tracking, all this kind of thing. So this woman, the only thing they found of her was her skull in this wooded area. Well, instantaneously, once he told me a skull in a wooded area, I saw a lot. I saw the killer, and I saw where the rest of her remains were. So there was a decapitation. This was a crime of passion. And the two were separated, being the skull from the body. Pretty serious, heavy stuff. And I told him that I think the body is somewhere else, obviously, but still in that area, ravine or a wooded area between a train track that runs parallel around the Naperville area where crazy stuff happens, and then somewhere in between, like Naperville, Aurora area or something like that. And this is in Illinois, United States. And he said he'd get back with me on that. And I don't think he's going to do anything with it, and I don't really care. But I do think that there is a corpse out there, a headless girl, in these wilderness area, and I could probably walk there right now if I wanted to, and I have no desire to. It's not my deal. Could all be fantasy as well. But it's just odd how those little things, those synchronicities, where a psychic or someone who is privy to remote viewing, remote influencing, can fall into avenues of structure that can find events and have information that no one else would have. Now, returning to this aspect of how I saw the killer, I can tell you I think her killer was some kind of older lover. He was an older lover, and he shouldn't have been loving that, or he had raped her or had killed her, something like that. However, the difference in this situation is that I do believe the two parties knew each other, so there had to be some kind of connection. And I do think possibly there was a child involved or something. I didn't share any of this with that person, and then there was obviously a reason why this murder happened. This girl at the time was 14 years old. This man at the time was clearly way beyond that time. He was probably in his 20s. It was something bizarre, weird, not cool. That's pedophilia, whatever you want to call it. I'm not into it. I don't partake in it, and I'm not a murderer. No interest in such things. I just want to do my art and be a happy person. But anyway, I've kind of it was kind of decided for me through those intuitions instantaneously. At that moment in time in that bar, I solved that in my own mind. I do think that the killer is still on the loose. However, I do now believe he was incarcerated for a later crime. He might be in prison now. So he still is going to rot in prison, or he is in prison, but not for that particular incident. He's resting with that. And it is a him, and I think he separated that body to hide the fact that the girl was pregnant and picked up on the way to a party, decapitated in some brutal fashion or something, leaving something as behind as to say that this person is dead. And however, even more so, going into the drunken speech of this man who's, told me of this thing that I've outed with the murder of reading tarot cards and discovering this. The skull was not discovered until like 10 years after the actual incident of the murder, or something thereof. So it was like 1999 or something. So this woman was a missing persons. It goes back to what I was discussing about Lacie Peterson. This person goes as a missing persons, and then their body is discovered later. It was not DNA that matched it either. It was dental records that matched to this young girl who was murdered. Now, you hear me using some of these terms. Clearly, I've worked with FBI and law enforcement. I don't do that now, but I know how it works. I know how to track a killer, and I know how to track a killer psychically. This is not something I chose to do. This is something that kind of found me as a child. And different incidents have led from one scenario to another. But that's what being a real psychic is about. Oh, we just dropped out. I think the ghost got me that time. But it does happen when you're on live radio. And I am Winter Lake, streaming QUE4.org. It seems like it's pretty trafficked up out there. A lot of cars, a lot of things happening. Everyone is commuting. Everyone wants to buy something new in our consumer society, which is fine because I like new things too. Although I have like antiquity that is like 1,000, or not 1,000, but I have some old stuff. I have too much stuff. You know, and I think I need to sell some of it. I should just sell it all. I think I want to sell my big old house, and I want to sell a bunch of stuff in the house. So if anyone wants to buy some relics, just email me and let me know. Because I'm really contemplating maybe selling and like buying like a loft or something, you know. Something different. Who knows? Time to get up with time. Someone sent me an email in remarks that I had said about Amanda Knox yesterday on the show. There's a lot of mystery behind Amanda Knox. Now, there is so much going on with that woman now as opposed to when she was younger. On MySpace, I was her friend. She knew nothing about me. We only met through a creative writing group that was on MySpace at that time, and she was creative writing. And, you know, MySpace is ancient now, just like the antiquity in my old house or whatever it is. But no one's there. And that's how I kind of connected with Amanda Knox. And she would send out in these different forums her writings. And Amanda would write about killing people in great detail on how she would do it and how Satanism is involved and how black magic is involved. But nobody really knew this in the trial aspect. That's fine. I mean, I hope she did get away with murder because I kind of like Amanda Knox. I guess that's bad to say. But Halloween night is very high witch night. In the time of the murder that took place in Italy, in that small village, it was so random and unexpected. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe they did have some intent. Maybe she was going to carry out some of her own writings. She was very young when she first did that. And I don't want to bring her wrath down on me because she's a free woman. You know? I mean, she wants to bring some wrath. I'm not slandering her. You know, she knows everything that I'm saying is true. She did write in great detail about how she was going to kill someone. And the Satanism involved in that. I found that the murder that took place in Italy with the 3 individuals holding down one girl, with the way the knife was done to the throat, and the activity on the special evening said chosen, being Halloween, is very nefarious. Now, psychically, I have an opinion, but I'm not going to say whether she did it or not. But there's just, in plain sight, I'm showing some similarities that I do not think that people really know of, that they know or have any idea about. The forum on MySpace has since gone. All of her writings are since wiped out. She was very meticulous in taking down some of her stuff, which is fine. I have it all on my computer. I've not written it. I've read it and found it very fascinating. I'm not going to share that because I do have a soft spot for her in that way, and I guess that's just my dark nature. But she's a free woman up in Washington. I think she's pursuing more writing. I don't think she's going to take it this direction. And the interesting aspect of the glamour that was over her parents, with the way they so vehemently spent their money and spent their time freeing this woman, revealed to me also a very powerful technique used in witchcraft, which is known as glamour. Glamoring individuals to make them totally devoted to you. Beyond the norm. I mean, there is things that you just know and see that can make it seem like witchcraft is afoot. When a person is just so totally committed, when there's no gray area whatsoever, no gray doubt. There's no way my daughter could have done that. Well, I don't know. You may want to evaluate everything. You may want to look at her writings or diaries. Maybe they never went in her room and cracked open some of that stuff. But Amanda wrote in great detail how she was going to commit a satanic crime and get away with it. And I think she did. She carried out a really interesting thing from a standpoint of a writer writing fiction. Now, did she actually do it? As I said, I'm not saying she did. And even though I may have just been speaking about it, I wasn't alluding that Amanda murdered that woman. Because there was also other parties involved. The thing that also interests me is that they had this one man named Guide or something. They call him the South African something, some third-party guy. What was he even doing there? They knew each other, but it came out that they didn't know each other, or did they know each other? Why was he incarcerated and the others were not? Amanda was in jail for some time for committing satanic crime. They called her the she-devil and all these things in the press. But I just think that they were going at it from the wrong angle. They weren't looking at it from the angle standpoint of what would her true motive be. Because they could never establish a motive. The DNA evidence just wasn't there. That goes to the meticulousness of cleaning up a crime. And you can evade DNA through use of bleach and certain other things. People don't want to hear that, or maybe they don't know about it. But you can. If you use bleach on a body or if you murder someone, I'm not espousing that you go out and murder somebody. That's how you get away with it. Although I wrote a book that's not published on how to commit murder and get away with it, and evade DNA research and a lot of things. But I'm not a murderer. I have no interest in killing someone. But I did find that the investigations in reversed could be usurped. I know the mentality, and I did see certain cues of corruption within the crime scene that made it seem like the murderer had knowledge of how to evade a crime. And the whole ego thing of staying after, the day after. If you realize this, she was an exchange student visiting Italy at that time. So it wasn't something that she really needed to stay there. She could have up and left with her boyfriend. Kind of looks like Harry Potter or something. I actually know a guy who looks like Harry Potter. He started dating some girl that I was dating, and I used to call him Harry Potter, and then the girls started calling him Harry Potter too. It was hilarious. And he used to get so pissed. I don't know why. Well, I would get pissed. I think he got pissed because I was the one that started calling him Harry Potter, and then she started calling him Harry Potter. But anyway, Amanda Knox's boyfriend at that time looked like Harry Potter, and I'm just deviating. But the way they stuck around the next day, and they were all cuddle bunny, and they were watching the crime, made me seem like, hey, you know what? You really didn't need to have to stick around. You guys could have actually just got on that next train and made it over the border. Yeah, you would have been up on some charge or something, but probably you just would have evaporated. It wouldn't have made headlines. It wouldn't have gotten you 15 minutes of fame. So you got to look at the motive. Amanda Knox, writer, writes a descriptive book about how to murder somebody, get away with it in Satanism. Goes to Italy, steeped in witchcraft. On the high witch night, some murder is committed. Something happens in her flat. Came out later through other people listening. There were sex parties going on in there, whatever people are into. Harry Potter's in there. He kind of gets into it. He's with this young girl, they're attractive. He gets into the game where he was already a member as well. There's been a lot of different scenarios going on with him as far as what his role was or why. But I do think that two men held the girl in a kneeling position. Amanda took the knife, possibly, this was the scenario depicted by the criminal court, and stabbed the knife in her throat, and so on and so on. After a series of incantations and satanic avenues of witchcraft. So they stay the next day. They watch the whole thing with the police show up. And then, media is called in, and they're there to be interviewed and filmed all snuggling across the street, and fame is established. And so she blows up in the press, and now she's out of prison some years later and has millions of dollars and an established name. So it's quite interesting how things can happen, set herself in motion, causality of events that can make someone be established in fame. And as one of my friends said, in fame or fame, it's all the same. But that's what people really want. They want to be famous. And they'll be willing to do anything for that fame. Anything at all. Maybe Amanda is making my channels fall out. I can't play any music for you today. Streaming live, QUE4.org, Winter Lake, winterlake.com. There's, I'm alone in the studio tonight. I choose to be. And I'm just in a mood. And already I'm seeing that things are kind of aloof. Things are definitely malfunctioning before my eyes. Witchcraft is possibly afoot, right, as we get into Thor's Day tomorrow. And then Freya's Day. But on Freya's Day, Friday, investigator ghost team's going out to not a witch house, although I guess I'm just in love with the witch house. They're going out to an axe murderer house, notoriously haunted by the people that were obviously murdered in the house. And I'm going to try to broadcast live from that location. It's going to call it in, and they're going to walk through it. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, but tune in then. It'll be some interesting entertainment for sure. I don't know all of the scenario that went on around that murder over at this axe house, or how this thing was transpired. So we'll both be learning together what's happening over there, or if there is indeed any ghosts. I think they're going to be going in with what is known as a ghost box. And I've been dying to get a hold of one of these things. Ever since I did my Drone and Machinations of War show, I had some people on that were involved in the sales of high tech and bomb jammers, cell phone interceptors, and all these kind of things. And it's enlightened me to find out about a ghost box, a device that through certain electromagnetic fields can pick up or detect types of anomalies that are out of the surface wave of normal human nature or energies that they're emitting. And I'm not sure exactly how it works, because being the ardent skeptic, I can create a device that can give some kind of certain feedback, and you can, through certain alterations, try to make it do basically anything you want. So a ghost box is kind of up in the air with me. I do think it was invented by someone who was trying to contact their own daughter who had died. And he evidently was some kind of physicist or something thereof, and he was trying to create some kind of causal contact with that individual. And so he went to the brass tacks of his workshop and constructed this ghost box mechanism. And I just have to get my hands on it. I mean, I'm curious to see how it's going to work. And I'm curious to see what comes back on Friday when the ghost team is there. Because these people, the Paranormal Society, they take themselves very seriously. These are not stupid chumps. They go into it. They're very interested in eliminating all the other aspects of it. So you're going to, like, you know, talking about crime again, you're going to seal your crime scene. You know, you're going to keep it from being contaminated. So when they go in and do a ghost investigation, they cut off all the exits and all the things that could cause interference. And they go in with, you know, open eyes, seeing that if there is something there, not some of these embellished shows that have some hook at the end or some noise is pushed in here is false. And to be honest, a lot of the ghost shows that are on these televisions is saturating the networks. They're all false. They have to have ratings. People do watch them. You have to realize it's entertainment. It's not real ghost searching, in my opinion. They have it down as how ghost searching could be conducted. You know, they put on the dog and pony show and all that kind of thing. But really, people, it's just entertainment. You know, you get to a certain time within the show, there's a slamming door, or you hear a wind, or some kind of whisper or something. It's all a joke. It's all a joke, but it's meant to, if you view it as it's entertainment, then you don't get so caught up in it. The real stuff is random and unexpected. There are shows, I'm not discounting all of the shows, there are shows that have genuinely gone out and conducted research and looked at stuff and maybe captured some things out of the ordinary. But the majority of the different shows that are on the television now are really just kind of, you know, trying to get ratings, make $1, whatever, however you want to look at it. You know, they're not really in it to reveal a ghost. Whereas the team that's going out on Friday during my broadcast between 5 and 7 p.m. live Central Standard Time and hijacked by XM Radio and AM 1710, which is not hijacked by AM 1710, but another email has come through showing that I'm streaming live on XM Radio, which is perplexing. I think there's just someone must be watching me. Maybe I should play that song. I don't think it would watch. I don't think it would play, though. I think if I started playing that song, it probably would jump out, too. So I don't. Might be cutting in and out, very similar to my music. So I'd just like to let you know that Friday I'm going to be broadcasting from 5 to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time from possibly a location at a haunted house through a paranormal research team. They take themselves very seriously. They're going to be going out into an axe murderer house and trying to solve the puzzle of the murder and see if any ghosts are there. They're going to call in and hopefully we'll be able to talk about it. I hope it does happen. If it doesn't happen, so be it. That is what live radio does when you are live. And you can call me as well. 773-217-8344 if you'd like to chat about dreams. If you want to email me, which is what everybody's doing anyway, wolfloki at Yahoo, WOLFLOKI at yahoo.com and winterlake.com. I will answer any questions you have. I'm very down to earth. Don't care about ego. I know that's kind of odd for a black magic practitioner, but I just don't. I run into a lot of different types of individuals that are into my genre, and they just seem so egoed out or arrogant. It's just can't even deal with it. It's kind of stupid. But you can email me your dreams, which I do like to interpret. If you have a question about curses, I can go into that too. Did have a question in a follow-up on an email about curses, and he felt he was left on a cliffhanger when I was talking about how, if you are in New Orleans, if you do go to a false guru, how do you end up with a curse? Okay, well, revisiting this, what happens is, so you go in to this seer shop, tarot reader, astrology, whatever you want to call it, person. And you didn't go in with a curse, but you go out with a curse, because what happens is the person puts a curse on you. So you go out, even though he told you you had a curse, and maybe you didn't, you will just by the sheer magnitude of that visitation, because that person is going to put a curse on you. You are a dollar sign to him. You are a dollar sign. And so you will really experience the ramifications of a curse, and of course, run back to that guru or whatever he was and say, I need to get this removed, and I'm ready to pay that amount of money you talked about. So these people are nefarious. They're just ruthless. And, when you walk in, you're under surveillance, so they have your image. It's like status quo. And before they had good surveillance, they would just take a picture of you and you wouldn't even know it. And that's a gateway tool to witchcraft or black magic or anything you want to call it. And if you have bad intent, once you have an image of someone, you have them. You can really lock in on that person. And with the right amount of intention, if you wrap certain things around the image, like strings or binding, depending on color, certain days of the year are better than others, you can really wreck a person. Or do other things. There's other types of spells. But these things do have some types of ramification, if you believe in ramification. I don't. But if you do, there's a tendency to kind of fall into it. I do not believe karma exists. So if you cast a black magic curse on someone, I don't think it's going to return to you threefold. If karma existed, the earth would have been wiped out a long time ago. City-state reality have been stepping on people for quite a long time. And so how are they able to get away with it? And people screw each other over all the time. I mean, let's just face it, that is the nature of our country, nature of our beast, nature of our world. And the most ordinary people are required from time to time to make decisions crucial for their own lives. And in such crises, they know something of their own lives that push them to that edge. And they have to make all kinds of different avenues of decision. So if they're pushed to believing that they have a curse, they're going to convince themselves that they have a curse. You can tell yourself a lie long enough, you're going to believe it as truth. And you have to really kind of analyze everything. It's important not to allow a lie just to become a truth, or to convince yourself that you are cursed when really you're not. But people still want to. They want to think if they, since they're bad luck, it's got to be something else. It's not something that I could fix. And I say fix yourself. I don't really believe in psychotherapy. I think that's a racket. I think they use insinuating triggers and plant beliefs in people that aren't healthy, that takes them down the course or breaks them from certain things in causality. And it's a control mechanism on the part of the individual with some kind of intention or something they are planting and manipulating of their own within the subtlety of the individual. And psychotherapy is very manipulative. And they do it. I don't know why they do it, but it's not for the betterment of the person.
doesn't lead them to a new road. It generally leads them to ruin. Through that being cut off by the ghosts afoot in the studio tonight, which is going to be a fun night. I think I'm going to go see children kill each other for food on Thanksgiving tomorrow with Catching Fire, which should be interesting. And then I have filming on Saturday, which is going to be doing more shows for Star-Crossed Vampires, which I'm kind of looking forward to. We're doing a teaser. I just loaded a teaser up on YouTube if you'd like to view it. It's pretty entertaining. The quality is superior to the first episode, and it's a lot of fun to do. I like the vampire genre. I like to play with it. Star-Crossed Vampires is a comedy about a vampire couple that do not get along. They just are together for so long that they're just kind of there. And a lot of similarities with being a regular couple, but these people can go in and out of each other for centuries as they do not die, or they have not been killed yet. So the crux of the whole show is quite funny. It's meant to be dark comedy, and it touches in on the entirety of the human history. One of the main characters is named Cleopatra, who's a woman, obviously Cleopatra of Egypt. So she dates from that time and met Winter, my character, along the way. And I just used my name. I guess it could have been any name, but the character, and even I'm interchangeable. I'm in it, but I may even change myself out and put some other stud guy in there or something. But as it goes along through history, she had encountered Winter probably like maybe 500-600 years later, and then they kind of hooked up and they hung out and have kind of don't get along though because they keep calling each other out on stuff. But that's the nature or the reality of the show, and then you get that odd interplay of it. I'm working on that, and I'm working on the book thing, and then answering and doing this Pentacle-Hours show, which has been very interesting and a lot of fun. Entering into the second week of doing it, I've gotten some good feedback, and I'm still structuring it. You know, it's free form, freestyle. I'm allowed to do what I want. As you can see, I'm all over the place. I can start out on one topic and end on another, moving, into certain other avenues or realities. Could start with UFOs to witchcraft to tampering to society to murder to philosophy, discussions of anything pretty much that is of interest, but it does in one clear-sighted way stay in tune with the occult. So everything that I do talk about does have that in common. And that is what Pentacle-Hours is about. It wants to stay in common and about the occult and its relativity. And to establish that the occult does touch on all those different zones. It basically touches our lives. Occult being such an odd word, it's given that it may mean wisdom, it may mean a knowledge or a secret knowledge. It has its roots in Greek ideology, I believe. Could be wrong. And feel free to call me out on stuff. Feel free to call me out on BS. If I am wrong, just email me at wolfloki@yahoo.com. or winterlake.com and just say, hey, this was incorrect. Like the explanation in regards to the curse that was not fully explained. That the individual went in seeing if he had a curse. Well, for sure, when he leaves, he's going to have one because that nefarious individual is going to put one on him and bring back his client and make that money. At least that's how I've known him to operate. It's called a crossroader. They do it in the South a lot. And I'm not bashing the South. I stay down the South all the time. I own a house in Florida, so I go down there all the time. I know what it's like down there. And I intermingle with people all the time that are in my field, in the field of the occult.
And I run into a lot of charlatans that are into that God money, as I am, and as we all are. You know, I do want to make money like anybody else, but there's certain maybe ethics with it. I don't know. Is there ethics with it? You know, is everyone born a sucker? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been suckered out on stuff. Who hasn't? I mean, we all go up and down on stuff. We just try to limit our liability. We try to limit our potential losses. You know, climbing a hill of crosses. The cross was invented by the Romans as obviously a crucifixion tool. And Jesus obviously wasn't the only man that was crucified. Nero, in a story that I can relate to crosses, deviating into that topic, Nero being the last emperor of Rome who was blamed for the burning of Rome and the utter final destruction of Rome, used to, and he was an artisan. I mean, this guy was really into art and into high forms of art and theatrical performance, and he would set up a hill of crosses and put Christians on the crosses, or people that said they were Christians, or whoever he wanted, really. I mean, he was Kaiser, he was Caesar, he could do whatever he wanted, really, as he did. So he would put them on this hill above over the city, and he would go on the other side of the city. So you'd have the city inside sort of a valley. And then he would order that all the crosses be lit on fire. So he would sit over there, and true enough, he would play like a fiddle or whatever he'd play, and he'd burn crosses all night to light the city. So not only did you get crucified, you got torched. I think that's a pretty brutal way to go. You know, I mean, I do from time to time touch on witchcraft and how different witches have been exterminated. But I think that would be pretty brutal to be nailed to the cross and then set up there for some time, suffocating and dying, and then, okay, now it's time to burn you alive. I don't know if that's just my man's inhumanity to man. Conceptual things happening there. And it is a beautiful day. I think with the rain, or maybe possibly the snow that's going to arrive. And it's been really nice to be with you today, and I hope that you continue to listen to me. The feedback has been good. With Winter Lake on Pentacle-Hours, this has like really been my own individual adventure, and I've enjoyed taking it. So reach me at winterlake.com. We'll talk about anything occult. I'm not really interested in much other than that. I mean, there's other things, film and stuff. We can talk about that, but don't waste my time.